Excited! My final Villa Gaia session in this series.
Not final, only
In
for
this
this
series, in
season.
this series that I am here since I go tomorrow. I think I'll start missing these conversations the second I walk out the door. It's been
We'll
so
have them
wonderful
online.
having this time with you and exploring topics in this way. So for this last conversation, excited to have you here also, Alex. And let's talk about the fellowship. Already, even with the name, it sounds so inspiring, impressive, mysterious. I've always, as many, my dream has always been to join a secret society. It's got a little bit of the sound of that. But yeah, maybe we can start, Gian Andrea, you can tell us what is the background that had brought you to start thinking. I guess you're the initial person who came up. Who is the source? Or is this going to be challenging?
I would say actually we were talking about it in September with Rory, because we were out of the CSP program in June. Then in August we started to talk how can we provide something more effective for philanthropists and impact investors, because in a way we felt a disconnection between education approaches like we see in CSP or other institutions that focus on the knowledge, and then the gap in a way of, okay, but what do we do next? How do we deploy capital? How do we do into action? What are the options around for philanthropists and for impact investors? And so Rory came with the fellowship concept. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And so we played with that idea. We shared with them key organizations leader and people working in the philanthropic space. And they said that this is very interesting because, yeah, in a way, a fellowship is a path to enter into a new concept, new way of seeing investing and systemic investing as an ongoing thing, not just I do it once. And also because there's so much to unpack, so much to learn about systemic investing, complex systems, all the conversation that we're having about new models, new frameworks, that is not like a normal investment where you send a spreadsheet. Like if you send a deck or a spreadsheet of these, people will be like, what is this? What are we talking about? It takes. And so, yeah, no, I didn't come up with that word.
What I love about it is that it triggers this notion of active participation, of really being a part of something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, I mean, as all of us here, we are realizing we need everyone to be part of this, all different types of stakeholders. And even on the investors and philanthropist side, it cannot be just capital. There is the concept of poly-capital or multi-capital, because all of us, we hold the different pieces, not just resources. We hold time, we hold influence, we hold knowledge. And so being part of this altogether, it's a more complete approach.
Brilliant. So there is many different, as you said, there's many different courses, there's many different networks and membership organizations for impact investors and investors. What are the problems or the gaps that you see?
Yeah, and consider
that the fellowship will fill.
Yeah, and consider that we've all been in a way part of different summits and gatherings in the impact space. Maybe I went overboard with that, as I've been participating probably a bit too many. And also we work with more than 70 different networks, most of them in the impact space. I see, of course, a few key gaps for philanthropists as well, for organizations that are part of these networks. One is systemic thinking. Like the problems that we're dealing with as a society are non-linear problems, are complex problems. So it's not that we think, okay, I do A, I solve B, and that's it. And problem is solved. In reality, you're dealing with problems that have multiple roots, multiple causes, and you need to solve and to deal with things in parallel. want to be very concrete, one of the things that we're talking about is the lack of investments in infrastructure. There are so many projects, but are there organizations connecting this project, coordinating? Are there organizations building the venture builders, the tools to support all of them? Because right now in all these networks is pure competition. Everyone is on their own. It's not that the network comes with infrastructure and say, okay, now you are in a container, we will help you raising capital, building projects and so on. And I have to say that all these networks do not have the capacity to do so. Even the financial models behind, there is not enough either investment or revenues for them to justify allocating more people into it. All of them are kind of very tight with the neck above the water, trying to survive economically, because it's a tough market, especially also what you were saying, like with all these networks, what's the difference? And differences are becoming minimal. And so, being more concrete, being more systemic, having a focus on learning, training, both orientation and then activation, and helping all these stakeholders through coordination, mapping, developing infrastructure, improving communication channels, including more the voices of investors, stakeholders, even in the project itself, because there's a big disconnection. And then what we're talking about is also on the audience part. Are we also building audiences, user bases, or stakeholders groups where these projects and these investors can also talk with ultimately the communities that will be impacted by the solutions? Right now, no, haven't seen any of this. If we did, we would be part of it. And yeah.
Interesting. And when I'm really thinking through what are the components of these infrastructure pieces that need to be built, and connecting with what we were talking about before, I really think that where I have come to arrive in my thinking is that there is two parts. There is the technological part of the infrastructure, and then there is the cultural mindset, consciousness part. And probably nobody is doing both sides well, because usually you're really good at technology or you're really good at culture and consciousness. And it's really, I think that this is the challenge. We've arrived at the times where it's only at the intersection of those two that the quantum leap is going to happen.
Sazian, with Alex, Yannick, and the guys here, and all the organization involved, we've been talking about the concept of hive mind and mycelium network infrastructure. So how can we develop technologies where members of a network are not just members, but they are active contributing nodes of this ecosystem where knowledge is constantly harnessed, and then it becomes like a living organism where we can ask questions, we can in a way source knowledge, insights, which brings all of this into the next level. So,
but wait, because it's funny, we're always our dynamics is you're always pulling in the network and the hive mind, and I'm pulling to the team. Small group. And the fellowship as you envision it. Maybe we hear a bit from Alex. What is the size at which it becomes robust? Because of course, there's thousands of people, maybe better, but at what size do you envision it that it really becomes and it functions well? Is it 5 people, 50 people, 500?
Yeah, I like to see things modular. So starting small, building out from there. One of my mentors, who is also an investor, she explained to me that she loves investing in beautiful projects. What she loves even more is investing a bit less together with 4 others. Right. And making it a group thing. So that's something I'm seeing for the fellowship too, forming small groups of fellows, for example, 5 who go on a journey together throughout the year in service of the purpose of their specific fellowship. It can be directed to a specific solution that we need in the ecosystem or a specific challenge that we're dealing with. And I think it's up to us to design an experience that makes them part of both the technological development and gives them an experience of the regenerative culture, way of being, way of communicating, way of co-creating, way of harnessing our collective intelligence. And that's how I see that these elements can blend together in an experience that benefits the fellows, that can help us start in a smaller scale and build out from there.
It's funny, by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned to you, but for a year or two, I've been telling people we need to create this club, 5, 10 people, 100,000 each, and then share the investment and also share a personal development path together and go deep together as a thing. So maybe I never wrote it down anywhere, never went there, but I had this conversation.
We believe you.
But I had this conversation multiple times. I've been moving many other things forward, and working with investors is not something I've done with much yet. So it wasn't anywhere near my roadmap, but I had also this idea. I just generally believe all of us need small groups of people who we are deeply aligned with, who we can go on a deep development, collaboration path together.
That's an element I'm really interested in. There's, to what extent, and maybe it's a question for G too, because you've been more connected with the impact investing space. To what extent are these like potential fellows? I picture impact investors who want more, who feel there's more, who feel they can go a bit deeper, who feel there's more impact to be made. To what extent do things like personal development play a role there, and their personal purpose and their soul's drive to leave a meaningful legacy beyond their family's fortune? To what extent is it alive in these people?
No, I mean, I think it's there. Like I've spoken with dozens of impact investors and philanthropists that say, I want to be effective with my resources, with my time. I would say, of course, the challenge is then goes down to the returns, for example, because then if you're really solving societal issues, well, you need to be more patient with capital. Like if you're developing infrastructure, you're not going to have a 15-20% IRR from the first year. Like it's a slower return. It might even be a lower return. So then the question would be, how many of them are willing to sacrifice time in returns in a way for a higher systemic change and impact? And that one, I don't know, I think part of the transition and the experiment that we have to do all together is exactly this. Are people willing to?
It's a really interesting element, because this whole game of serving all life on earth and the highest good is also a game of ego surrender, right? And the way we build our organizations and the organizations we connect with, they all speak out, say, hey, I'm not attached to the name. If it serves the collective to change the name of this, or together should start something with a new name, that's an example of how this ego surrender plays a role. And in the same way, the ideal fellows are okay that their return does not come in financial return necessarily, but in all the things that money can't buy: meaning, belonging, purpose, personal growth. Do these people exist?
So I think connecting with what both of you said, it's yes, and it can't be just like, give us your money and wait 10 years. Mm-hmm. I think if we are generating value and impact, even progress in the narrative, it's up to those organizations to share and demonstrate the value that is being generated, even if it's not financial. And I think this is a key thing in this conversation around multiple different value flows and value generated. And that's where I think building public, building the shared narrative, building connections, right? And that's where we need to build the culture, coach the organizations that are doing this. If you're not generating financial returns, well, what returns are you generating? What are you creating? What relationships are you building? And creating the ways of reporting that, of surfing this is that, because I believe there should be accountability. If you are taking money, if you aren't generating, and this is certainly in philanthropy, NGOs, that conversation is there. And my understanding is that overall it's very early days. It's weak in terms of the
reporting,
measurement,
effectiveness
on effectiveness. So there's very much on the organization space and the people doing the work that's on us to get much better at bringing the investors along on the journey and showing them that there is value generated in the world for the money that they are putting in. And if it's not financial, then what is the value generated and why is it important and meaningful and a useful way of using the capital?
And to be brutally honest, because anyway, I think this content, this session is going to be within a close circle of audience of organization we work with. So to Alex's point, do they exist? People that have this mindset, that have a kind of substantial resources that they can unlock and create big shift. Well, we haven't met them yet. Considering that I've been in this space for 8 years, I spoke with, I don't know, many hundreds of foundations, philanthropic organizations. So I see 3 challenges that maybe as a community we can think how to address. That either who has the resources either doesn't have the intentionality to solve a problem because of power dynamics. I spoke with a number of super ultra high net worth individuals, even next gen, people our age, that I asked them, like, are you willing to, in a way, give away some of your power in order to solve the problem? Because capital in the current framework is power. With money, you can unlock a lot of things. So if you give power, but then you ask more power back with interest, where are we taking that power from? And in most of the cases in the impact space, you're taking it from already underprivileged communities. We're talking the other day about microloans. Yeah, a lot of people say, I'm doing impact because I'm borrowing money, I'm lending money, etc. And then you ask, but what's the interest rate? Well, it's about 70% a year on the lowest side. I heard those 130%. Anyway, and this falls in the current impact investment space. Is
illegal in European.
Yeah. But over there, they say, these people don't have access to banking. It's high default risk rate. So we need to. And so you're like, okay. So your first challenge, intentionality. Then the other challenge is that who has the intentionality, which there are a lot of people with very good intentionality, do they have the competence to evaluate who to entrust the money to? Because there are so many good-looking funds and foundations that really, it's like a script. They learn the script. They say all the right words. They have all the bunch of demographic and group age and gray hair and blonde hair and black hair, white dudes and white background, mostly Western, that ticks all the nice narratives, but then on what you were saying, on the reporting, it's disastrous because they are not doing any real systemic change. But again, reporting is only valuable if someone knows how to read it. And also, again, what is the intentionality? If someone is moved as an investor by saying, I feel that I have to do something, so I feel either guilt, shame, and maybe my family has been accumulating wealth through all sorts of means. Some people come from the oil industry, slavery, weapon, arms, etc., etc. If the drive is to release guilt, then it's easy. There are foundations that happily will take your money and will say, with this, you're changing the world. You are a hero. Your name is going to be remembered forever here in stone. Yeah, that's it. Transaction done. Ego, pain. So you have intentionality, competence, And the last one, of course, is the time and the focus, the attention span that these people have. Because when we go in system change strategies, we deal with complexity. How many people are willing to take the time to understand complexity? And in my experience, attention is very fleeting. I'm talking about 2 minutes sometimes. You're talking with someone, 2 minutes later, they're already thinking about something else. So, to be blunt between us.
Super, and that's the thing. Like the wealthy people are wealthy because they're good in the money game. The money game is not the purpose game.
No, you already got sold the wrong thing. Wealthy people are wealthy because they got born into the right circumstances.
90% of wealth is inherited. We live in in meritocracy.
And even if it is because you're good with money, because you were born into the place where you have access to the place where you can apply those skills.
Yeah. So just where I was going with this is for the fellowship and for financing the movement, another path to start exploring, and this is also an invitation to people watching this, is what could be very profitable innovations, products out there, regenerative, that we can collectively embrace, that we can get out there, that bring the returns to the money that comes in, and that bring returns to a fund that can fund other regenerative projects. I'm sensing we're in a very interesting times where new technologies are coming out. If somebody here at the Villa bringing plasma technology, magical results it brings. So that's another path to think about it. What cash cows, revenue generators can be activated for the movement that help us speak the money language to the money people without wanting them to become purpose-driven when they're not.
What do you think about it?
I am completely in the opposite direction. I don't believe in easy gains. Anything that's easy money, somebody will grab, and then a corporation will buy them, and it's there is no easy.
I don't think this was easy.
There are windows. You're for sure right. You can grab for a year or two something, but then in the end, Amazon will buy it, or Shell will buy it, or things that are not complex and that have mass market appeal and make lots of money get sucked up by the big corporations. I am rather looking at it from the other side, right? If the challenge is mindset and impact measurement, then I believe we need to create a powerful enough narrative, right? Because investors are people, and all people follow narratives. They follow into... Humanity is all about stories. As Yuval Harari says, our most powerful species thing is that we make stories real, and our biggest weakness is that we can't tell what's actually concrete and physical and what isn't, right? Whether countries or religions or money, all of this is stories. And I believe we can create a better story, a new narrative which is compelling and grabs enough investors that it starts to move and shape the new narrative of what it means to be to build legacy, of what it means to be a good human being. There were many times in many cultures in history where 7 generations was the timeline that serious people thought about. It's possible we can bring that back. And combined with that, on the other side, if there is a lot of greenwashing and people who do weak things and claim high impact, then we need to claim and we need to get very serious rather than saying, every project is different, we can't measure things. I think we need to go in the opposite direction and say, here's very seriously how we measure. And your measurement, and this is why you're not, and these are the numbers, and this project is better.
Yeah.
Right. So I see those two sides as, and it's much longer term, and it's changing the narrative of society. But we've started this already here. The conversations that we're having are starting to build this new narrative. And can we get 5 million investors into it? I don't know. Can we find 5 over the next year? I think so.
Well, if we don't, we will know about it and we say, okay, then we need to look
Then we
in
will
other
just keep on,
venues.
then we'll just keep on iterating
Yeah.
because it's the only path forward. It's to go to a maybe a more even bigger picture and a more narrative humorous thing. I think it's very interesting that last night you brought to us Foundation and that we watched Harry Seldon's Foundation, which I read as a kid in high school, and for sure it's stuck in there as one of my cultural idea making frameworks in life. And if we are talking about, who do you aspire, if your dream character, who you'd like to be, for me it's Harry Seldon, right? This idea, this dream that you can lay seeds for the evolution of the galaxy for 1,500 years is beautiful and fantastical, and in one way far-fetched. On the other hand, maybe not as an individual, but as a fellowship, we can certainly think and see and play and plant the seeds which will accelerate certain developments over the next 100 years of humanity's development, which are very critical because there will be many tough times and many things. So creating this kind of deeper, higher, on the one hand crazy, but on the other hand so inspiring purpose, right? Can we get 5-10 people who are like, yes, we're going to,
we want to get real,
the foundation.
Yeah, to help shape a new story for humanity. There's now like a future path is being shown, right? And it's shown and repeated time and time again in politics, business, entrepreneurs. It's all about the technocratic future with more digitization and centralized control. The alternative path is hardly proposed, highlighted. And I think being part of that is different than they've ever experienced before.
And can we shape and move countries and all of this during our lifetimes? Probably not. Can we get enough people and resources to create many different, but adding up to a movement, aligned stories of the solar punk positive future? Yes. Can we? I had one dream of, for example, of creating, and this could align with what the thing's doing. Let's create a story writing contest for different possible futures along, with some parameters of the things that we're thinking of. How would life look in that future? And then based on that story content, maybe create some more media. And then based on those stories, see what technologies we need to create. And from that, launch kickstarting and other campaigns for creating those technologies. But starting with the stories, right? We can do this. This is not a massive funding thing, right? And creating the narrative and keeping on repeating and talking about this possibility of possible futures is huge, right? There is in the US, there's a great example of that, unfortunately, towards the hard right libertarian movement. What was the name of that group that in the 20th century really shaped the narrative? I forget about it, but they really went on the liberal anti-government, and they wrote stories, they wrote white papers, they wrote position papers, they were a think tank, and they put out a certain narrative over and over and over into every conversation they could get into. And that's the reality that they pushed the United States.
Hive mind. No, but I agree with the new narratives.
I love the term hive mind as something more, it's still conceptual, but something more concrete for fellows to get involved in. Earlier speaking about the fellowship and what's needed to unite humanity and to help humanity collaborate and coordinate, because that's at the heart of it. Yeah. Where you brought up this idea of the merging of AI Web3 technology and regenerative mindset into as a new spectrum of solutions to collectively create. It's about hive mind, leveraging collective intelligence to bring forth superior solutions that fulfill people's needs. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
And that, of course, will be one of the solutions. And as you say, the creativity, if we can imagine multiple scenarios and they gain enough traction to, in a way, counterbalance the mainstream narrative that we are seeing today, because this one is not nice. This one is going straight into dystopic futures. More people, I'm speaking with so many people, especially in the past 2 years, that are saying, hey, Andre, I see a dark future. I see that humanity will reach at some point a singularity, oneness, but before that point, things are going to get very, very bad for many people. And then there will be perhaps, a bouncing off. And because the current mainstream is going through heavily centralization, technocracy. So few people, a very specific demographic, having the power of empires or even bigger than empires.
And that's exactly the story arc of the foundation.
Yeah, precisely. The dynasty.
Right.
Because
Which is
these,
why I think that there can be an inspiration, because the message there is that no matter, even if things are going into a bad direction, it's still worth investing energy in laying the seeds, which when the environment is right, will blossom into a new reality. And even something like supporting, and authors are not expensive, creators are not expensive, but supporting the creation of media and storytelling of positive futures and possibilities of positive outcomes, that would be huge.
There are two ways to look at this alternative future, this path that we're seeing. One is the super positive one, like we have a chance to create paradise on earth, and to really look at it on the positive side, right? And when we take all scientific knowledge we have now, we allocate the resources effectively, we integrate primordial wisdom. Wow, the life that we can create, the solutions that we can create. Everybody can retire, if we just make a solid plan, a few years of focused action, we're done. Like, that's one way to look at it. The other way is more taking it from a standpoint of resilience and anti-fragility. Looking at the stormy times ahead, we do need alternative solutions because supply chains may collapse, and the house of cards can come down. So we need to be resilient and anti-fragile with solutions of how are we going to exchange value, how are we going to eat, get energy, live, etc. when the current systems don't supply anymore. So these are two ways to approach this narrative. Super positive one, and the one of brace ourselves.
Well, I mean, for me, first of all, there's no amount of feasible action that in a few years or a few decades will solve all of our problems. It's going to take a few generations. Things will get tough. Question is how tough, and nobody can really know, because it's complex systems, and complex systems behave and collapse and not collapse in unpredictable ways. But definitely one of my favorite cartoons is, you guys must have seen it. It's like 4 panels, and the guy says, all of this earth, the climate is warming and all of these things, and we must do all of these things. And somebody the audience puts up their hand. But what if it's all not true? And we create a better planet, all for nothing.
I've seen it. About this corporate.
It's gone around. So no matter what, and for me, my driving, and it's really interesting as we think of the fellowship, need to think of what is the philosophy, the ideology within it. And for me, I think a lot has been released when I really embraced that Václav Havel quote, that hope is not the certainty that things will turn out well, but the deep belief that what we're doing makes sense no matter what. Right? We cannot guarantee of whether it will take 100 or 500, or maybe we'll go back to the thing and it'll take another 5,000 years to regain. I don't know, but I do know that the things that I'm doing are the only thing that I can do. And it's also more fun. It's just joyous to be working and contributing. And like you say, most of the things on the menu, building community, you're surrounded by people who like you, appreciate you, love you. World turns to shit. It's the only thing that will be useful. No amount of guns and canned food will support you. World doesn't turn to shit. It's still the best way to live.
Yes.
As well as with energy transition, healthier food, which means local food and all of this. Most of these solutions make sense no matter which future you predict, which makes things easier.
Because that's for a long time I wanted to write a small book about the 10 selfish reasons to do good. And there are so many selfish reasons to do good. I mean, now I could, if we circulated among our networks, you probably get to hundreds of answers, including technological advancement, healthcare advancement, and cleanness of air. You can imagine you might be a ultra high net worth individual from India. You're living in Delhi, and your kids are breathing all sorts of pollutants, and then at 14 years old they will have lung problems. There's no amount of money that can replace health, especially if the healthcare technologies are not developed properly, because money is not supplied to solve problems, but rather exploit the current problems. So that's one of it. Crime. The more resources are distributed better, the less crime there is. The better you feel around. When you go in Switzerland around, you feel safe. When you go, I don't know.
Can I tell my favorite anecdote? So a few years ago, for the first time I went to Switzerland, and you hear so much about Switzerland. Famous Swiss, all of this wealth and money. But I've been around the world, I've seen the big buildings, Tokyo, New York, Dubai, I was like, all right, Switzerland, bring it on.
Your best.
How are you going to surprise me? I was like, and they got me. Basel, middle of the summer. At lunchtime, people come out of their offices, put their bags in a locker, and swim in a river. A river running through the middle of a big city. I mean, that's completely unimaginable in London, like in
Paris,
Japan, it's just unimaginable. And I was like,
Rome.
Okay, heads off Switzerland, you got me. And that stuck with me for life. That today wealth is not the cars, the big buildings. Anybody can do that, right? Even Egypt is building this crazy city. But a river through the middle of a big city that's so clean that ordinary people, not homeless people living on the streets, ordinary people come out of the office and swim in the river at lunchtime. That's the sign of real wealth, because it's systemic. It requires so many different systems, all functioning at a high level of effectiveness for this to be true.
Cultural, technological, social, economical, etc., etc. Absolutely. So, as you say, I mean, of course, and that's the message that I think would be one of the key messages to push forward. I'd say there is nothing to lose by doing good. If not, perhaps power and control. But you can give away that and gain welfare, belonging, more advancement, healthcare, better food, better quality of air and living. Also, because if supply chains start to falter, civil wars start to pop up, who's benefiting? Yeah, very, very small minority that is power thirsty and that wants more power at the cost of anybody else, but that's a very small minority. And most ultra high net worth individual I know, they wouldn't be happy, that they wouldn't thrive. They will probably be some of the people exploited as well in this massive fire that could happen. So yeah. Let's get going. Let's do it.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, we will need to iterate in all of this, but my dream or my thinking is, how can we create an organization that helps these people discover and understand their purpose, and then create an investment portfolio which they feel and they see and they know through the impact is aligned with their purpose.
Yeah.
To really go to sleep at night going, yes, I know I'm doing everything that I can with the resources that I have.
I think that's what you were saying, narratives. We need to show the other side of the coin, because right now the main narrative that is monopolized by the mainstream, by the establishment, is individualism, competition, classism, elitism, wealth, but not wealth in the sense of freedom of doing what you want, wealth in the sense of showing off, feeling superior than others, taking, exploiting, etc., etc. And we know it's not real. We know that this will bring humanity to its demise, or at least it will bring so much sufferance and damages. And as we know, humans didn't evolve in this way. We evolved in tribes. We evolved in reciprocity. For millennia, there were no classes. There were no middle class, no lords, and so on, especially in small tribes. Yeah, there were leaders, but it's not that they were paid higher.
Do you know how it worked, by the way?
Well,
many of the tribes actually, they didn't. First of all, as a hunter-gatherer, if somebody starts to become too much power and all of this, you're mobile. You just go and walk off. And it's actually not
They used to do that with...
The band would just like, okay, screw you, screw you and your power trip. And it's actually not true that this meant you were suddenly alone, because everybody knew other groups. You had a cousin there, you had this there, you had options. You could move. And the culture is built in such a way as to prevent people to become, too much full of themselves, right? When a warrior brings in a massive kill, the whole village gets around it and looks and goes, "This? Really? Looks sick. It looks like it died in your hands. This is the best you could do? Come on, it looks pathetic." Because there's this culture, of course, everybody knows and everybody feels joy, everybody's eating well, but the culture is, we bring you down because you've just done something that's likely to make you feel too big. So the culture is, with humor, people just, bring you down to an equal level.
Today is not like that, and also the problem is that you cannot walk away. So it was like this also in Rome, during the Roman Empire. There were villages that if the lords were becoming too tyrant and so on, the village would just walk off. They would be left for a few weeks to fend for themselves, and then they will go back 3 weeks later. And then there's nothing left because they would have left as well. Good luck farming, good luck doing. But today, of course, given the interconnectedness of the world, you can always outsource it somewhere, somehow, and there's no place to walk away. And all cities and countries are becoming, following the similar patterns. And it's not that easy also to become citizen or belonging to another country, getting visa, unless you have work. And for work, you fall back in the same mechanics.
At the same time, I think people have known it throughout history, but now we have scientific research which shows that you can't buy your way to happiness. right? There is the good study which shows above a
7K, I think, was.
that was the study. The thing it's somewhere around middle class. Above that, your amount of money does not increase your amount of happiness.
If you go below a certain threshold,
For
absolutely
sure. If you're,
yes.
for sure.
But
Below a certain threshold, if you're living in precarity, it's tough.
and I
But
think was
past a certain quite reasonable,
yeah. It depends on the countries, but I think it was in the Eurozone, 7K, 7,000 euros a month.
for a family of 4, I think.
Might be, yeah, and anything above would be negligible in terms of happiness. It wouldn't be incremental.
Yeah.
And probably in the US, of course, now is a bit more, might be in the 15,
Whilst
20K.
we know that living with a sense of meaning
Oh, yeah.
has a huge impact on people's health and well-being. So I think it's really exciting. I think what's cool and maybe what should be our selling point is that we have a good sense and we have identified these leverage points, this gate that will open the next level, both of growth and different kind of business opportunities and massive impact and the opportunity to build a new society.
Absolutely, and some of the keys that we're talking about is collaboration, coordination, technologies, consciousness, protocols. We're learning so much about what are the challenges, but also the solutions to collaboration, coordination. And perhaps I would have a question to whoever wants to answer, which is for the audience listening to us, which will probably be organizations that wants to collaborate, coordinate, that they feel that they can't do it alone and they want to operate in a larger ecosystem. What could be the next step and how could they collaborate with us?
The first step is to get in touch.
So they get in touch. They call Alex. Alex, what should they do? How? Let's say we are a platform that maps organizations, so we know what the ecosystem looks like. How do we cooperate?
I mean, part of it is still falling into place, right? How do we shape the
All right,
fellowship?
suck. Let me answer. Because the first step I understand, because for me, but for me, it's clear that putting out this narrative into the world is the key thing. And the easiest low-hanging step all of us can do is just let's interview each other.
Yeah.
Let's record a conversation. You talking about your thing, about your needs, or
Media. Narratives.
And you share it through your channels. We share it through our channels. It costs us the time of the conversation, really, and it puts out everybody's work out into the world, and it lets us immediately see if we have some trust, if we have some interest. And I think this is what everybody should be doing. A lot of us are having a lot of conversations, and you laugh at me. I had 300 conversations not recorded. I hear you had 700.
And I recorded that.
Are you recorded them?
Yeah. With Fatom, Otter.
Okay, well, we
pretty
should
much all of them.
Start publishing that.
Yeah, at least 85% of them, at least. Yeah. So maybe even more.
So I think this is the easy first step. But then after that, I also think.
Then let's say, for example, an investor or a philanthropist. He calls you and say, Alex, I'm interested.
Yeah, I think first question is to find out why. What interests you? What sparked your imagination? What is the thing that hooked you?
So this is actually something I'm interested in. I will take your question and counter it with a question. Would investors be also interested to have a recorded call to share their ideas on their thinking of their purpose and their investment thesis or their goals?
It's normal, right? Step one, intake call.
No, but would they be interested in a recorded interview that's
and
published?
sharing it? That's a good question. I would say yes. Of course, ideally with philanthropists would be better. Uh, yeah. I think these are a great idea. Like, why not creating a circle where you start having conversations and say, tell us, share with us, how do you feel? What do you want? What do you need? To me, maybe the challenge will be again time and attention. Will they have the time? Because they're surrounded by foundations, by people that try to get their money in a way. So they're constantly surrounded by hundreds of stimuli and inputs. And if it's not foundations, it's also all the entertainment space. There are people that seek precisely ultra high network individuals to offer them all sorts of entertainment to keep them as fulfilled, busy as possible. So can you get on a call with that? And I think,
Well, I mean, the scenario here was is that they reached out and that they were interested.
yeah,
And
then
I
yes.
wonder, I mean, it will take a degree of professionalism from us and learning to be good at it, but doing, in the end, most people enjoy being well listened to. Right? And if the invitation is, let's have a call where, we listen and we help you feel in, and, it's like a coaching guided call, which lets you understand better of what you are interested in. And the invitation is not give us money or invest, but can we
Tell
help
us.
you discover better what your interests and where your purpose, where your ikigai lies.
I like that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Is the beauty of thinking while we are talking about it. It's took note. This one is very nice. So the next sessions, I mean, not the next, but within the next, let's say 8 weeks, we will have it with at least one philanthropist. Let's put it in the board of things to do. Yes.
For sure.
And perhaps one foundation that works with philanthropists. But then I would say to organizations. So one of the things I've noticed that is essential, we were talking about all of us in different conversations, is the fact that collaboration needs resources, needs efforts and capacity. So one of the things that I would say, if an organization is interested to work with us, is also to allocate some resources for collaboration to happen. Like we were talking about having project managers. Like in a way, when 3 organizations get together to run a project, well, you need a project manager. And right now it's not happening. We are part of a number of groups that we have been facilitating, supporting. Alex did an incredible job in moderating a series of think tank with deep industry experts, all coming with their own assets, all coming with, we want to collaborate, 12 organizations. And yet, since August, we have seen very little happening because there is no project manager. And obviously, Alex cannot be, I cannot be, because we run other things like these physical spaces and the infrastructure. So then saying, let's put $300-400 a month and let's hire a project manager that helps us coordinate and connect and make all of us accountable. Like, have you done this? Have you done that? And the other thing we're talking about it is the fundraising part. Why these 12 organizations raise fund one by one individually? Let's pay one fundraiser that helps us all. And if that organization gets the money, part of it will go into the infrastructure to support everyone else. So these new models, and I haven't seen this happening. I don't know if you have seen organization.
I see a big need. I'm meeting more and more organizations who want to collaborate on shared goals. And the coordination and facilitation of that group process is always the bottleneck.
It's I think, what you talk a lot about, G, is the ecosystem services organizations, right? I think this is something for us to look into and come up with some pilots, figure out how to fundraise for those pilots, and just start showing how this can function better.
Yeah.
And then again, creating this narrative, the narrative that I've been talking about is that when you're an organization, if you want to be regenerative, new paradigm, whatever this new thing, you need to really be thinking of how you're interacting and participating in the ecosystem. The projects, it's between organizations, and yeah. And I think I really see the low-hanging fruit is to create more and more spaces for dialogue and conversation, and then needs sharing. And from that, right? So creating a shared fundraising body, probably a whole chunk of work.
Yeah,
Creating a series of regular conversations where the people responsible for fundraising in aligned organizations come together, share problems, and that's pretty feasible.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's also the work with the guys of GaiaNet have been doing with creating dashboards where, for example, people can post needs, wants. I don't know if you have the media part. Well, we can have that on Symbiosis. I'll push other infrastructure. But yeah, I think you have a lot of experience on these. And how do you feel about it?
The need sharing?
The need sharing, what can activate organizations in collaboration, because we've been swimming into it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk about activation, like most people are stressed, most people are busy, most people don't have enough time in the day, so you always need a human who comes to them and who asks. That's what it comes down to.
That's why, as a 35 years experience with technology, for me the answer is not technology, but these regular synchronous meetups, because it's much more fun. I don't know, I told Alexander today, you haven't heard my speech about again, you dropped out of school, so you're useless. What did we
Absolutely,
hate?
yes.
What did we hate in school?
Homework.
Of course, I mean, but there's one of the reasons.
How have we organized our collaboration now? We come together and we give each other homework.
Yeah, oh, what a beautiful idea. What could go wrong?
How did we end up in this world, right? Where the thing which we all hated, we like, right? So I don't know what the full answer is, but for sure, more synchronous collaboration, co-working type of things is part of the solution. So getting people to fill things out, all of this is hard. Having 1 hour a month where I know I'll meet other people that are working on cool things, I get to find out what they're doing, and then getting people to speak their needs, speak their offers, put it on Miro, something lightly facilitated, that's, I think, feasible.
Yeah, but also because it goes against our nature. I mean, we entered into this concept of performance, but humans are mostly creative. If you ask anyone, what would you do if you had unlimited resources? They would say, I would be a painter, I would be a singer, I would be a musician, I would do art. And then you hear some tech nuts, people like, I would be like, I would do science, I would experiment with things. But I never heard anybody saying I would be an accountant. I will fill up spreadsheets. I will make decks.
I don't know, but some people like this.
Yeah, who am I to judge? Absolutely. But I asked a lot. I've never heard that answer. I always had the two extremes.
The people who love that don't go to networking events. They're sitting
they're like
themselves.
They're in front of this spreadsheet.
Exactly. That must
be.
Correlation is not causation.
So yeah, I mean, I'm doing everything that I would love to. Anything else we can valuably explore? Let's maybe talk through of our dreams it's your guys' project. I'm here to serve and support if I'm wanted and if I can contribute. Alex, how do you think people who are watching this can support this, and what are the profiles of the kind of people you'd love to reach out, connect, and become part of this?
Nice. I noticed there's an element of both professional maturity and like experience with personal development. It's like people who have already seen the new paradigm in their mind's eye and who have already been making moves in that direction, walking their own path, following their heart, following their purpose, and are looking for wider tribe, ecosystem, collective to connect with. And yeah, take action. We are here talking now, but we're not a network of talkers, we're a network of builders. And we're a network of people who take their professional skills and now put them to use for the good of all. And in this movement, I think there's place for everyone and every skill, and it's a huge collection of organizations in our network that all can use help. And step one, again, is to get in touch.
For the fellowship, for the fellowship, sorry, maybe I didn't frame well enough. For the fellowship, again, step one is to get in touch, and step two is to have a conversation about what do you see, what potential links are there. And in that conversation, again, dozens of doors and opportunities will open up. So maybe it is too vague, maybe I'm being too practical. That's all what it comes down to. Connect, have a conversation, and take the next step. It's all iterative. It's all step by step. Just like Villa Gaia, we're jumping in here because we know it's good to spend more time physically together with the right people so we can go deeper. And we know good things will flow from that. I cannot paint out those exact things yet, but focusing on the process, I know that that's where the progress happens.
I would say to add that, as you say, of course, factoring the unknown, one of the most dangerous things I've seen in the space of philanthropy and impact investing is this echo chamber where things are set in stone. You arrive here, we do this, and nobody's allowed to question things. It's very, very challenging to question in those environments. So creating living space for co-creation is essential for collaboration because it helps feeling. I spoke with one of the world experts of collaboration just a few months ago, and he was saying that there are 4 components for radical collaboration. And one, of course, is allow people to be heard. Listen. And again, in these organizations, in these networks and so on, it's not like that. Usually you go there, you have to listen. There's very little space for you to share. Then the second part is leave a lot of empty gaps in strategies so that people can feel with their own components, which is counterintuitive. Sometimes you feel like I want to steward, I'm going to make everything perfect. And by doing that, you're closing it for others. But in terms of being concrete, I would say, of course, on the media part, that's already a good step of collaboration. Mm-hmm. Let's get together. Let's hear your voice. Let's the world hear your voice. Because a lot of the things that we are sharing, we are giving it so much for granted because we are mingling around each other that maybe there are so many people that will benefit from hearing it and having confirmations. Because maybe they thought about it, but they're still living by saying, am I the wrong one? Am I the only one seeing it? Am I the only one feeling? And then they close themselves into these 4 walls of their mind and solitude. So media, share the narratives, but then of course access to resources, to assets as well. I know, and I see also from the groups I'm part with philanthropists, impact investors, that there's this massive echo chamber where people are doing the same things over and over, expecting different results. So I would say some of these organizations, like those that are really, really committed about system change, like get out, like bring the investors into a new paradigm, into a new narrative, get away as far as possible from those gravity pit holes in a way where it's all about echo chambers and the current things always like being the repetition of what has been like the ESG for like 20, 30 years. Invest here a little bit more, just one more billion, just 10 billion more. Not only we are not solving problems, but we are getting further and further away. There are interesting statistics also about this, how even on the 17 SDGs, which they are already very fluid metrics for so many reasons. Also to the point that we were saying earlier about measuring things differently, reporting things differently. But the current statistic shows that not only we didn't get closer to the 2030 goals. In 13 out of 17, we got further away. Our goals we set there, we're going backwards. And that's because
it's because the world is upside down.
In their defense, I think it created many conversations which I don't think would have happened otherwise.
Yeah, on one side, yes, but there is also the recycling, however you call it,
wish cycling,
which seems to me similar in this way. And I was at Impact Europe in Turin a couple of years ago, and at the podium there were the 4 or 5 sponsors of the forum, all banks, and one of them says, I think he was in his 70s. You see when someone already is unhinged. They say, I got here, I don't care about my status, my reputation. I'm gonna be straightforward. I said, look, because I asked him a question from the audience. Yeah, I said, I've done. I think I came from Abu Dhabi at that time. I said, look, I've done 8 hours flight plus, etc., trip, 10 hours trip. I'm here because I want to do concrete systemic change. What are we here about it? And this was not my first time at that conference. So I was, right. First day, I want to make sure we are here for the. And he said, he looked at me, like a ref. Then he said, we are here because it's fine to talk about change as long as we don't change anything. And I was like, then we were 400 people there between investors, philanthropists, organizations. We can talk about change as long as we want, as long as we don't create real change. And so these institutions, in a way, have become so consolidated in these power dynamics, ego dynamics, echo chambers, that I'm seeing some of the brightest people that have been attracted to work with some of the organizations that are leaving because they're saying, I cannot change anything from the inside. That system is corrupted. It's corrupted by power, by ego, by echo chambers. So to the organizations, in a way, listening to this, I would say, let's create a new paradigm fast. Let's create new narratives. Let's create, in a way, new components, new containers for this to happen. And I think we're doing it. We are already here. We're getting together. So let's accelerate.
Brilliant. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Victor, some closing words. You open up this topic.
You want me to follow that? I think concretely, neither of you has, in my opinion, answered the question, which was what kind of people do we need to come and help build the fellowship? I think we need people who understand the existing impact investor networks and are excited about building something that is more impactful, next generation. I think need people that are interested in narrative building, storytelling in many media. I think we need people who are excited about, the fellowship. Yes, it's all of these mighty things, but it's a members club, right? There will be events, there will be online, offline experiences and other things. Somebody that has experience designing luxury experiences and high-end, meaningful membership clubs would be really great. I think we definitely need the investors, whether you're interested in joining or not. If you are willing to share your ideas on, for you as an investor, what is and isn't working, and especially, if you're entirely happy with the system as it is, then it's probably, we would still love to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly.
But especially we would love to hear from people who see and sense and would like something different. we're not asking you to invest. The only thing that we're asking is an investment of a 20-minute, half-hour conversation.
Radical transparency.
Yes. And yeah, let's do it. I think I'm starting to really sense this searching for these acupuncture, the system acupuncture points, finding ways for laying seeds for a radically different future through concrete, measurable, impactful action today. So it's really exciting. Lots of work ahead. But I think we're much further ahead than we were 2-3 years ago when we first met.
Incredibly. Yeah. I see acceleration and I see convergence. I see ego being dissolved in many organizations, dissolved by the frustration of fighting alone and not going very far. And it has its own beauty in a way, because as we know, wisdom is a journey of embodiment you have to go through. It's not easy to dissolve your ego if you don't face the reality of the fact that we are weaker when we are siloed and we are stronger when we are converged.
And in whatever way you choose to reach out, collaborate, join with us, one thing we can absolutely promise is it's going to be maddeningly interesting, and you'll be surrounded by people and ideas you feel very, very inspired.
And we will laugh a lot.
Yes, we will do good, feel good about it. Yeah. Cool. So looking forward for the next session, and I'm so curious how these conversations will evolve. I want to see us 6 months from now, 1 year from now, how we will keep track of this, and how many more people will be part of it. So eager, so looking forward to it. Thank you, Victor, to be in the conversation. Alex, thank you.
Yeah, nice work, guys.
And to the producers.